I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to tell you is something I kept hidden for almost 8 years, out of shame, out of love, and out of a desperate need to believe I had not made the biggest mistake of my life. I am 91 years old, and I gave my daughter everything I had spent 6 decades building. Every dollar I saved, every sacrifice I made, every moment I chose work over rest, over travel, over the small pleasures I told myself I would enjoy later. I handed it all to her in a single afternoon, and within 2 years, she had stopped returning my calls entirely. I need you to understand who I was before that afternoon, because the decision I made did not happen in isolation. I was a person who had spent my entire adult life being responsible. I raised my children largely on my own after my husband passed away when my daughter was just 11 years old. I worked 2 jobs for years without complaint. I saved carefully and consistently, not because anyone told me to, but because I understood from a very young age that security does not come to people who are not intentional about building it. By the time I reached my early 80s, I had accumulated just over $200,000 in savings. It was not a fortune, but it represented every disciplined choice I had made across an entire lifetime. The first crack appeared when my daughter called me during what she described as a financial emergency. Her husband's business had encountered serious difficulties, and they were at risk of losing their home. She was crying in a way I had not heard since she was a small child, and something in me responded to that sound the way it always had. I did not ask enough questions. I did not consult anyone. I simply felt the pull of a mother's instinct, and I responded to it the only way I knew how. I told her I would help, and within the week, I had transferred a significant portion of my savings directly into her account. The second request came 14 months later. The business situation had apparently not improved, and there were new complications involving legal fees and outstanding debts. By this point, I had already given her $140,000. She assured me this would be the final amount needed, that things were stabilizing, and that she and her husband had a clear plan for moving forward. I want to be honest with you about something. I had doubts by this point. Something in me had started to feel uneasy, but I silenced that feeling because I did not want to believe what it was telling me. I gave her the remaining amount. The third thing that happened is the one that still takes my breath away when I allow myself to think about it fully. The calls became less frequent almost immediately after the final transfer. At first, I told myself she was simply busy, that the stress of her situation had exhausted her, that she needed time to stabilize before she could be present in our relationship again. I made excuses for the silence the same way I had made excuses for everything else. But the weeks turned into months, and the months eventually accumulated into something I could no longer explain away with reasons that were kind to her. Research from the National Institute on Aging and various elder care organizations has documented what professionals in the field refer to as financial exploitation of older adults, and the findings are deeply sobering. According to multiple studies, the majority of financial exploitation experienced by elderly individuals is carried out not by strangers, but by family members, most commonly adult children. The pattern typically involves an initial request framed around genuine need, followed by escalating asks, and in many cases concludes with a significant reduction in contact once the financial resources have been depleted. Experts note that victims frequently delay reporting or acknowledging what happened because of the emotional complexity of holding a child responsible for causing harm. What nobody prepares you for is the particular quality of the silence that follows. It is not like the silence of a stranger who owes you nothing. It is a silence that echoes with every memory you have of the person who is now absent. I would find myself sitting in my kitchen and remembering the sound of her as a little girl.
The way she used to fall asleep against my shoulder. The graduation I attended alone because I could not afford to take a day off work, but went anyway because nothing would have kept me from being there. Those memories did not comfort me. They made the silence louder. The sixth thing I want to address is the shame, because it is the part that kept me quiet for so long. There is a particular kind of shame that comes with admitting that a child you raised and loved and sacrificed for has treated you in a way that caused genuine harm. People do not know how to respond to that story. Some become uncomfortable and change the subject. Others immediately look for ways to explain the child's behavior that center on misunderstanding rather than intention. Very few people simply sit with you in the truth of what happened without trying to soften it into something more manageable. At 91, I have had to completely rebuild my understanding of what it means to be a parent. I loved my daughter with everything I had, and that love was real, and it remains real even now. But I have had to accept that love, even the most genuine and sacrificial kind, does not obligate another person to behave with integrity. You cannot love someone into having character they have not chosen to develop. That is perhaps the most painful thing I have ever had to understand. What I want to leave you with is this. If you are considering giving a large sum of money to anyone, including your own children, please speak to a financial advisor and an independent legal professional first. Please involve people who have no emotional stake in the outcome. Please give yourself time between the request and the decision. And please, above everything else, do not silence the quiet voice inside you that is trying to tell you something important. I silenced mine, and the cost was everything I had spent a lifetime building. You still have the chance to listen.